Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and a very good day to all of you, my dear students. How are we doing today? Good, that's really nice. Wishing you a very good day and I welcome you. So how's the experience so far? Good, that's nice. Interesting. Very good. Lengthy. Well, I already gave you the tip of avoiding that issue when it comes to the duration of the lecture. You know how to listen to the lecture, and the same tips and instructions are for listening to our today's lecture as well. But things are getting interesting, and especially giving reference to our previous lecture where we talked about, or we can say, an overview of the complete structure of a report. In our today's lecture, we're going to look into each and every section the way it is supposed to be written, number one, and number two, we're going to talk about each and every section alongside a sample, alongside an example, so that you can simply look into the objectives which are supposed to be achieved while writing that particular section, and look at the way it has been written when you look at the example itself. And then few other things, some tips that I'll be giving you, especially with respect to those specific sections, that all is going to work together simultaneously to make you understand the complete structure of a report. We're going to cover as far as we can with respect to the duration, the given duration of our lecture. So if we just take a start, that'll be more good. So if I take you to our very first slide, it is all about the quick flashback of what we have covered in our previous session. An introduction to report writing, we talked about its basic, we talked about the basic purpose of report writing, then the features of a well-written report, some talk with respect to the objectivity, research structure and clarity, and there was a little talk when it comes to the mode of report writing, the way you basically write a report, and we discussed it in a good detail. You already know how it is. You can just look into the last few minutes and you'll know what I'm referring to. So if we talk about our today's lecture, once again coming towards the point, and that is looking into all the sections the way they are basically written and how they are supposed to be written alongside the examples. We'll be focusing on each and every one of them and alongside some tips which will be coming. So let us just take a start with our very first section, and that is the title page. As the name itself is telling you, this is similar to any kind of cover of even a book that you have, on which the name of the book or the title of the book is there alongside some specific details which are supposed to be there. Well, in a similar way, you have a title page for a typical report, and what is basically required to be there in a title page? Well, these are the four things which have been mentioned on the left hand side of the slide. Just look at your left. This is your left, this is mine, so we can have a little bit of ambiguity, but the point here is just look at those four bullet points and look at the sample as well, which is there on your right hand side. The title of the report clearly mentioned at the top. You can look into it within the sample as well. You move ahead and we have the date of submission, which is supposed to be there as well. Then the third component, and that is the addresser's name. Who is the addresser? The one who is addressing. For example, I am the one who is writing the report for you. That makes me the addresser and you the addressee. So within the addresser's name, I'm going to write my own name, and for the one the report has been written, that is basically the addressee's name, where I'm going to write your name or all the other individuals who have to basically receive this report. That's how it is supposed to be done, and that's how it has been done here within the example as well. Now if you look into it, this is the area. Now you know what it is. Complete description is there. Then prepared for, which means that this is the place where it's going. So who is the addressee? The next spiral that I have simply made, that is the area basically that I am referring to. Prepared by, come towards the bottom of the example, which means this is basically the one who is the addresser in case of this report's title page. And finally, if we talk about the date, so you have these things and the spiral, of course, that I missed at the end. But that's how these four things are supposed to be there, especially when it comes to preparing a title page. If I give you a reference of the talk that we had, especially with reference to the title page, and a little bit talk with reference to the formatting, and especially within the APA formatting style, I told you that within your report, there is specially an area on the page that is the top. You can say this area, header, and if you talk about this one, this is the footer. In case of your header, I told you this area, this circular area is very much important, because this is the place where you place the title in capitalized version, which comes on every page in that capitalized form. And within this area, you write the page number. So if I just say write T over here, because this is the area where you're going to do it, and write P over here, which stands for the page number. The point is quite clear that you have to write page number on the top right corner, and you're going to write the title at the left top corner, which is going to come in capitalized form. The next thing that I told you, and I'm reminding you once again, as you have the example now of the title page, is that within the top left side, where you're basically writing the title, on the very first page, or you can call it as the title page, you have to write another thing. And that thing is RUNNINGHEAD, which makes it running head. You have to write this expression here, and right afterwards you're going to place these two dots. Now they are right. Two dots stands for colon, that you always see are preceding a list of names, and before that you always have these two dots. So the following things are required: two dots, this is basically called a colon, and then the items are listed. So in a similar way, you have to basically place these two dots right after writing a running head. Why is this not following me? Sometimes it does it, but the pointer is that you write RH, R and H, but you don't have to write RH. You basically, it is referring to writing a running head. Write it completely at this point, and right afterwards two dot, and then you have to write the title in capitalized form. And once you have done it, once you move ahead to the following pages, then you have to remember that running head, this expression RUNNINGHEAD, running head expression is not required to be there at the top left, no longer required. The only thing required is the title. Now you're going to write the title, and on the right hand side you're going to have the page number. This is the point which I wanted to make clear, and I believe I have made it clear, and it will be followed. And all you need to do in case of inserting these things, open up your Microsoft Word document. When you have the page, go over there at the top, you're going to find the option of insert. Click on the insert, go to the header, and on the left hand side it'll give you the option whether to put it at top left, top right, bottom right. You just have to select top left and then write it running head colon title, and it will give you the option when to remove the word running head as well, that you can do in the following pages. So that's how this is looks like a minor exercise, but for the very first time it looks a bit, even can become a bit tricky as well. But I don't think it will be for you. You know how it has to be done. Now you got all the instructions. Now you just have to follow them, and you will not have any trouble at all. So let's just move ahead and see what comes ahead when we are done with the title page. The next thing is the executive summary. So would anyone of you would like to tell me what is an executive summary? If you have to just say it, although you have all the points visible in front of you, but if you have to tell this thing to someone, if any two of you are sitting together, you can just tell each other the alternative definitions of the executive summary. I can wait for it, or you can simply do a single thing, and that is pause my video, tell this thing to one another, and then play the video, and we are going to take a start of what is basically an executive summary. Yes, it's an abstract, it's the short version of the whole report, and it is supposed to be written in such a way that you have clearly defined aims, the objectives should be there, the method has to be highlighted, which method has been used. Then you talk about your most important findings. When you are done with it, on the basis of those findings, you come to the conclusion, and on the basis of that conclusion, you provide a set of recommendation. Why? Because in most of the circumstances, you are supposed to report as a result of some problem which has been identified. You analyze it, and then you are supposed to provide some solutions. So that's how we move with it, and that is how it has to be compact, it has to be comprehensive, and should cover all the points which are there in case of a report. So now you're able to follow it. If you have to tell this thing to someone, even if you have to write an executive summary on your own, once you're of course done with the whole report writing process, I don't think you'll have any kind of trouble at all, because the things which are coming ahead, especially the one which is, let me just make it visible for you. This is the example, and now you can look into the manner in which different sections are just following one another and preceding one another, making a logical sequence, and that is how you are expected to write an executive summary covering all the components of a report. Let's look into it, and starting from the very purpose, or you can say the aim or the objective, but the pointer is you write it and just look at it. It's written over here as well. The aim of this report was to investigate Unilever staff attitudes to personal mobile phone use in staff and team meetings. Clearly define purpose. Even I'm going to touch these things within some detail as well, but as the purpose is already here, so we can just talk about it. Purpose, my dear fellows, it can only be written if you have a problem which has been identified. Even if a boss gives you the task, clearly mentioning the problem which is supposed to be resolved on, or which has to be analyzed. But the point here is purpose can only be written provided you have a problem, because you basically reflect your purpose when you know the problem. They are interlinked, they are interconnected. So even in case of your own project, whenever you will be doing it, the first thing comes first, and that is the identification of a problem. Once you will know the problem, you would be able to simply turn it into a purpose. You would be able to write it easily, just the way we can see it here as well. Now if we move ahead and go to the next phase, that is writing the methodology. A staff survey on attitudes towards the use of mobile phone in staff team meetings was conducted. So what was the methodology? Yes, this staff survey was basically the thing or the method of collecting all the data, and then afterwards it was all analyzed. When the analysis part was done, we got some results just the way they are reflected within this executive summary as well. Let's have a look at them as well. Starting from this point, the result indicate that the majority of staff find mobile phone use a major issue in staff meetings. So the results have indicated certain points. And where did the result come from? Your analysis, the analysis that you have carried out, and analysis came from the data collection. So everything linked, moving in a sequence. And now if we just try to move to the next step, so after you have got the results, is that it? No, you try to come up with some conclusion as well. So a conclusion is also expected from you, because a new person who really wants to know what you have done, so you're going to conclude it all so that the other person can absorb your findings as well. So if we look at the conclusion of the report concludes that personal mobile phones are disruptive and should be turned off in meetings. So that's how This thing is done as well. Now you have looked at the manner in which it is giving a clear logical point, a deduction. As you can see, some points have been inferred, and then of course we can never ignore, and it's very an important aspect, especially visible within this executive summary as well. I'm talking about recommendation. You are getting me right. So let's look into it as well. Is recommended over here that Unilab develops a company policy banning the use of mobile phone except in exceptional circumstances. A good expression here. I like the use of except and exception, but the point here is that's how you have to move in a sequence, same sequence as you have within a report, but you have to make it short, and you can only make it short if you already have something in long, in detail. Then you will be able to get the gist of it. But if someone asks you to just, first make it short and then go make it long, it'll be more tiring, it'll be more difficult for you. So just follow the sequence the way it is being provided and being taught to you. Good example, you got all the points. We can take you towards a little more technical, little more tricky, but it's also interesting and it'll clarify your concepts even more. Let's have a look at the other example, which is more related with the field of accounts and finance. You can see it has gotten a little long, a little detailed, but after all, it's an executive summary. And if it looks a little long, you can just imagine how detailed the actual report of such an executive summary would be. So that's the kind of work which is expected from you within the professional life. So just fasten your seatbelt, because you're going to learn much more which is coming ahead to make you a master writer, a master report writer. So if we look into this sample, starting of course from the subject matter, or can we give it another name? We just had a talk over it a few minutes ago. Can you think of the name? Yes. Purpose. What is the basic purpose? What is being studied? What is the basic focus of this study? So the subject matter. This report provides an analysis and evaluation of the current and prospective profitability, liquidity, and financial stability of outdoor equipment, and so on, limited. Name, of course, but the pointer is what is basically done within the report has been mentioned here very clearly within this section of the subject matter, clearly coming at the first place. So what do you basically, after pointing out or clearly stating what has been done, I don't think there is a need of mentioning how was it done. So that's how we move to the next stage of talking about the methods. Method of analysis include trend, horizontal, vertical analysis, ratios such as debt, current, quick ratios, and so on. Pointer is not to go into the detail or to just simply give it a reading. Just look at the way it has been organized. That's the focus. Structured form of writing, well organized, and making it all accessible for you to follow. Of course, when you apply a method of collecting all the data, then you get some results after carrying out the analysis. So you have to mention those results as well. And how do you do it? This is the way you do it. Look at the text in red. But as I have just looked into it, there is one point which is supposed to be mentioned here as it's written. All calculations can be found in the appendices. Do you remember what I told you about the appendices? What are the appendices? Would you like to tell me what kind of section this is and was it for? So you're getting it right. The point here is that if there is anything, yes, very right. If there is anything which even if you remove as a result of its long length and detail, and as a result of its removal, the rest of the report remains the same. It remains cohesive, there is cohesion, there is coherence, it's logical, nothing simply changes the meaning of it, then that is basically placed within the appendices. So it could be interview questions, it could be the questionnaires, or any other statistical details that can be placed at the end, not to affect the actual report structure. So this is basically the point that I wanted to highlight. So Now coming back to the red text. Results of the data analyzed show that all ratios are below industry averages. In particular, comparative performance is poor in the areas of profit margins, liquidity, credit control, and so on. Now look at the way all the findings, key findings, have been clearly stated here. If you already have the detail, I believe you can clearly state out or mention or extract the most important points, and you can simply place them in short. How can you make things short? This is like also an art and ability. You can call it, in simple words, the art of conciseness. And this word, the C of conciseness, is one of the effective 7 C's of communication which are needed to become an effective interlocutor, a professional interlocutor, because in every writing, in every talk, a professional communication, you need the application of all these C's together to come up with some effective communication. I'm not saying just writing, it could cover all forms of communication that we're going to see in the upcoming lectures as well. Coming back to the point, we're going to study how we can create conciseness within our writing by some good examples as well. That's coming ahead for you as well. So it will get more and more interesting as we'll be progressing. But first thing is that we need to master the structure of a report, and then we'll do the actual practice. So are you following me, right? Right after the findings, the next section is of conclusion. So of course, just the way we had a look on the previous sample, look at the way on the text in purple. The report finds the prospects of the company in its current position are not positive. This is basic conclusion. Major areas of weakness require further investigation and remedial action. Meaning this area is paving the way for this area to come, meaning paving the way for the recommendation. That's how you create space for the information which is supposed to come ahead. So this was an indication that some sort of solutions are coming ahead. So recommendation, note that conclusion and recommendation can be bulleted as well. A good instruction for you basically. But now look at the recommendations. Improving the average collection, increasing inventory, reducing prepayments, and perhaps increasing inventory levels. So that's how you basically write your recommendations as well. And at the end, this is also very much important, the limitations of the report. I'll talk about one point with respect to these limitations, and we're going to talk some more with respect to it when we talk within the introductory section with respect to another heading, and that is the scope. So I will be talking and I'll be touching it as well. But for the time being, if you look at the text, the report also investigates the fact that analysis conducted has some limitations, some weaknesses in some way, you can call it, some restraints, some restrictions. Some of the limitations are, then you talk about them. The purpose of mentioning, my dear fellows, my dear students, all these limitations is to create space for all the other future researchers who will either touch such topic on which you have been working, or some topic which is one way or another related to the one on which you have worked, or may exactly take the kind of work that you are working on. The data probably might be different, the time might be different, the people, the nature might be different, but the methodology might be the same. So your work will become quite relevant for them. And that's why limitations are very much needed, so that they may try to fill up all the limitations that were left in case of this report. So that's how limitations are also very much important, and that's how you can just look into the way executive summary is beautifully written and clear reflection of that whole report in just a single page. How good is that? So with respect to the executive summary, there was another thing that I told you, keeping it left aligned, justified, and around 150 to 50 word will be all. Keeping it brief, that is basic point which is supposed to be followed. And some other instructions were already given to you. If you need any detail, just look back The details are all filled up for you. So I'm about to move to another section, so it's a quick hint for you if you need one. So I'm about to move, and let's take a start of our very next section, which is the points to consider. Now these are the things which should be there within your mind, especially while talking about the executive summary that we have just prepared. Just take it as some good instruction points which were not there within my mind even I thought that we were about to move ahead, but they just came all of a sudden. So let's just discuss them first, and then you can follow that hint that I've already given you. So with respect to the executive summary, the point is that you have to write it in last. So I don't think it requires that much of detail. We have already covered and talked about it, that if you have already gone through the whole of it, the whole procedure, you'd be able to write it at the end very easily. But if you try to write at the beginning, the thinking process will continue, and then instead of shortening it, you'll be thinking of lengthening it or expanding it, or how to turn it into a complete report. So that's how this can be a quite tricky task, but a good thing would be to write it at the end. If you move ahead, it should grab the reader's attention. That is the focus, and you have simply looked at the way the different sections have been organized. The same thing you have to do as well to grab your reader's attention. You should be well aware of your target audience. Very important point. And if I just write, I would like to write this expression over here, just this one. SIG stands for significance. It's my own creation. Don't try to write it on the paper that significance stands for, or SIG stands for significance. Over here, just using my fingers to write on the, just taking it or using it as a board so that you can follow all the points as well. But the point here is you should be very much clear about your target audience, that who is going to benefit out of the report. It will be directly related with the kind of task that you are doing, and first and foremost you need to foresee who will be getting benefit out of it. Now let's try to understand this idea that I have just presented before you with some example. Let's suppose that you have to write a report. That report is all about the effects of, now I'm talking about that variable, the independent variable, and that is stress. The effect of stress on the employees working in a business organization or that business environment. Now you have to study them. The report has been written right after carrying out the analysis of that data which has been collected, on the basis of which you got your findings, and you have presenting them, or you have presented them, written them, and now it will reach the target audience. So you have to determine here that who will be getting benefit out of it. Well, of course, you have carried out that study on the people who are working in that business kind of scenario and that environment, or the working people, the employees. So once you point out the manner in which stress is affecting them, meaning how are they getting affected, or what is being affected, their performance, their timing, their behavior, their attitude, what is being pointed out. Of course, you'll get that data from them using interviews, survey or questionnaire, but the pointer is you'll get the data. And if the employees themselves are giving you the data, you share that data with the other employees in the form of a report. Don't you think once realizing them, they will know the aftermath of it? And of course, identification is not the only part of that report. You also will look within that same report. Let's say, I am just talking about it. Your second part of the report is all about the training programs which are arranged by the organization or the employer for, meeting the needs of the employees, to soothe them or to relax them or to calm them down, to reduce their level of stress. So the employees are going to talk about those special initiatives taken by the employers or their agency or their organization to reduce them or to facilitate them or to make them feel like they're at home. So once they highlight those things, and especially the percentage that you get of those programs that are really making a difference, so you presenting them within a report, don't you think it'll be read by the other people, especially working in a kind of similar environment, people working in other business organization, meaning the employees, when they read, will get the benefit out of it. The employers, when they are going to read such findings, they are going to include such initiatives, and they're going to also start such kind of trainings, such sort of sessions, such sort of socializing activities within their organization. So they'll be learning, they'll be sharing, and they'll be applying all the things there, which are the key findings and recommendation of your report. So that's how you have imagined, you have planned that this thing has to benefit employers, employees, plus the upcoming generation, meaning the educators will also get benefit out of it because they're going to teach their students how stress can affect them and what kind of programs should be simply initiated, should be made part of your working environment so that stress and its effect can be reduced at its minimum. So the point here is the educators are also getting all the benefit. So within this significance, you're going to mention that this is good for the finding of the study are going to simply or directly provide benefit to the employers, the prospective employers, the prospective employees, the currently working people, and plus the educators, because they're going to provide benefit by teaching all these things to the students as well. So these are the three people, the three domain, the three categories of people who are going to get benefit out of it. So now you have like imagined them, you have planned, and your planning has like given you the picture that these are the people who are going to get the benefit, meaning this is your target audience. And now if you know who is your target audience, you'd be able to mention them within the section of significance, which is basically written at the very beginning or chapter number 1 of your report. So this was the basic key, because of which I took time, explain it in a bit detail, but that's how this was so important. So it took a while, but now I believe you know why target audience is so much important, which is why it was talked about at the beginning in the form of managerial, technical, general, and you're going to see it will become even a little more detailed when we go ahead talking about audience and dividing it into high-tech, low-tech, lay audience, which means multi-level audience and multicultural audience. So there are things, but they are not as tricky as you think while I'm naming them. When they'll come, you'll know these are basic things, and you would be able to write them within no time. All you need to do is to simply clear your concept, that is all. Okay, let's move ahead and talk about the next point, and that is the theme. Of course, your report needs to reflect the basic theme of the central idea because of which the report has been written. So the whole report needs to focus on that one central idea on which you are working. If we talk about the kind of report on which I have given you the example, so the focus has remained on the effect of stress and its impact on the working condition of the employees, the way they are performing. So this was the central idea, and the whole report has been written over it. So central idea, this theme will be reflected within that topic as well. So that's how this becomes very much important, and I don't think you'll face any kind of trouble now when you have to determine all these things. Purpose. Now, do you think there is any need of explaining this point the way I have stated it already, and especially within the previous example, the way I've explained it? Point is that purpose, my dear fellows, is only possible to be written within a report when you already are well aware of the problem on which you are working, that you are identifying, that you are studying, and for which you are trying to provide some solutions. So this is the basic significance of this purpose. You can only write it if you know the problem. So you have to basically, the aim of this report is to do this and analyze this problem effects of stress and to come up with some alternative solution to deal with this menace. So you can only write it, I've just said it verbally, but you can just simply construct some good sentences only if you know what the basic problem is. So let's just move ahead and talking about the last point. It should reflect a clear business plan. Planning is basically the key to understand the whole phrase. Point is that you require planning, and planning is going to lead you towards writing an effective and a very good report. So this planning will help you to determine a purpose. This planning will help you to determine the significance. This planning will help you to determine what's your scope and on the basis of which your limitations. So we'll be covering those points as well. That is also an interesting talk which is coming ahead. But once again, that cue which was given to you minutes ago is the time once again I am giving it to you, and I am alongside with moving ahead to look into the next section, which is the table of contents, the TOCs that I talked about. So even if you talk about the different types of books, if you are a good reader, even if you talk about the kind of course books that you have been reading within your earlier classes and reading now being a student of ComSets and other universities, the point here is that you always have within the initial pages the table of contents. What is it? A sequential list of a report's organizational structure. In that case, of that book's organizational structure, the manner in which it has been sequenced, organized, prioritized, well, that is something which is reflected, and that is the purpose of a table of contents or a TOC. So it gives you the sequence. Now basically talking about what are the basic focus of this table of contents. Well, it gives you the scope, because it provides you a boundary over which the whole report has been written. How the report begins, how it goes to the peak, meaning the methodology and the most important finding, and then how it comes towards the conclusion. So scope is basically, my dear students, now is the time when I can just like talk about it, the scope, because the examples, of course, which are coming ahead, you're going to see the manner in which the scope has been written as well. So this is the time in which I should explain it to you, because now is the time and I can't keep it like a secret for you. So scope, my dear students, is basically the kind of range, that boundary wall that you simply build around yourself, not just around yourself, but around your study as well. That study which is being carried out and afterwards which will be written in the form of a report. That boundary, assumed boundary that you simply developed around you, is basically standing for you to stay within that jurisdiction. That boundary and all the results of your report will stay within it. It won't and it can't be generalized over that area which is ahead of that boundary, which goes ahead. So the results can only be applicable on that area which has been specified, which falls within that boundary that you have simply placed around yourself. Now to understand it, same example, you will get the idea. Effects of stress on the employees working in ComSets. Which campus? Your campus, but now you're so many. Few are like watching me in Ahmedabad, few are in Wah, Islamabad, Attak. I just can keep naming you. But the point is, just think of your own campus. I am just saying, let's say Islamabad campus. So now I have placed a line, which means that now the results will be generalized on the employees of ComSets, and making it even more specific, ComSet Islamabad campus, meaning the results probably can be different in case of any other university of your region. If I say the name of any other university, if I say Quaid-e-Azam University, so the results probably may be different. And even Putting it in another way, results of Islamabad might be a little different at the same study being carried out on the employees of Ahmedabad campus, or let's say Vihari campus. So there could be a little bit difference, but in this case, the manner in which I have placed the boundary within Islamabad campus, around Islamabad campus. That means that the focus of my study lies on the effect of stress on the employees working in Islamabad campus. That means that it shouldn't be and won't be overgeneralized that the same results would be in case of any other university of Islamabad or any other city. That's not the case. Making it more interesting, those employees of ComSets who are full-time employees, meaning working 9 to 5. So there is a possibility that the situation of the manner in which stress affects the employees who are working part-time might be different. That means that now you cannot generalize the kind of results that you are getting for people who are working full-time on the people who are working part-time, because there will be a difference. Their level of stress might be different. Making it more interesting, if you provide a specific definition, a dictionary definition of stress, and then apply it that that's the way I'm going to look into this independent variable and its effect on the dependent variable, once again you are placing a line. So stress, the interpretation of stress in any other way will not be considered, will not be generalized to be the case in case of this study as well. So that's how you can keep on placing boundaries around you, and in a similar way the results will be different in case of other circumstances. For example, I am giving you the last situation of placing a boundary or determining the scope of your study. The time factor, for example, the study which has been carried out here, the way I am telling you, studying the effects of stress on the people or on the employees working in ComSets Islamabad campus, and in the year 2003. So that means the results which would come ahead in case of 2007, or the results that may probably be achieved like in 2013 will be different. The results that you are going to achieve in 2016, or which were achieved in 2016, will all be different. The results cannot be generalized to remain the same in all these years which I have mentioned. Had the study been carried out in 2003 or 5, it's just a rough number that I'm sharing. But the point here is that the time factor also can be simply used to determine that boundary. So space is determining the boundary, time is determining the boundary, or all the other factors that you want to use as well. Just the way as I told you, nature of the employees, that they are full-time, so can't be applied on part-time. So there is much more that you can do as well. And in a similar way, this scope gives rise to or paves the way for your limitation as well. So within the limitation of the study, you also mentioned that the results of the study cannot be applied on people who are working part-time. The results of the study cannot be applied on all the other universities in Islamabad. The results of the study cannot be generalized on all the other universities other than Islamabad or located in other cities as well. The results of the study cannot be applied after, or cannot be applied on all the other studies which were conducted or carried out after the specific year, like 2003 or 4, on which this particular study was carried out. So that's how you determine, and in this way paves the way for future researchers, and they're going to look into all these points that you have mentioned within the limitations of the study. So that's how this is important, and I believe now it's like a piece of cake for you, because now I've given so many examples, because of which even I had a little bit dryness here within my throat as well. But I believe, and I wanted to just explain all the points in a bit detail so that you may not get confused. Now if anyone asks you what's the purpose of a report, what's the scope of a report, what's the limitations of some report or study. So you now know how to mention them and you will not have any issue at all. You know how to write them. Coming back to the discussion, the reason why I just mention all that talk on scope is that although this table of contents gives like a boundary, it develops a boundary, it reflects that what are the starting, the middle and the ending. But in a similar way, the manner in which you have carried out the study, that scope is basically written within the introductory section. So the introduction which is coming ahead, and you're going to look into all those examples, you will basically understand why I gave you a big detailed talk on this scope, because it's very much important, and I wanted to make you all ready to understand all the examples which are basically coming ahead. But now you know basically how you have to make, although it's like one page, so that's why I thought that I should prepare you for the upcoming information as well. So focus is on like providing page number for each section. It's like the first step towards showing your organization, how organized you are and how you prioritize things. Then it basically uses the decimal system. Can you think of the decimal system, what it was? I just talked about it in a good detail. The degree of heading, 1, and within which, wow, big arrow, 1.1, this is 1 basically. Within from that, 1, why is this always making, going towards the right hand side? Let me just say it for you. First degree of heading, 1. Second degree, within which under 1 is 1.1. Then the third degree of heading under 1.1 is 1.1.1. So that's how you use that decimal system. That was the point because of which I mentioned it here. You can see the arrows, they're just going towards right hand side, or in your case over there, meaning just move ahead. We would like to see what's coming ahead. I can see the interest of these slides as well, they won't move ahead. So let's just finish up. In case of the executive summary and TOC, these are things provided with Roman numerals, which are of course mentioned on the page number as well at the top right side. The rest of the information is all decimal, just the way 1.1 as I have mentioned it. So I am making a dot here. I don't know how is it going on that side. That's magic. But anyways, this is the way you can see page numbers mentioned, headings mentioned, and appendix also mentioned here. That's how you order it. One thing which is not visible here, I just created the kind of space for myself, introduction, under which this will come, and if I just make it 1.1, which is mentioned over here, then you write analysis. If I just give it 3, 4 conclusion, 5 recommendation, and then references. So that's how you give the numbering to all these sections. Sometimes the yellow color just goes out of my control, but you are clear about all the points. So now we can move ahead and focus on the next section, and once again Q is there for you. The introduction. The introduction is like just the way it's written for you as well, the big picture of the whole report, meaning it'll give you the whole situation, it'll describe the whole situation right from the beginning. The context. Context basically, my dear students, refers to the whole situation in which you have carried out the study. So you explain it in a good detail. Then you talk about the subject matter. Now I believe you are able to explain it to me as well, what is basically a subject matter. Can you think of the name? Is purpose coming within your mind? You are very clear about it. The aim, the objective, the focus. So you talk about it, you describe the problem in a bit detail, you describe it, what is basically being studied. You remember description? I told you the difference between description and an explanation, and you have to state thing. Description, and you have to give your views over it, you have to argue over it, becomes a little bit more related with explanation. Defining objectives, you define your objectives here as well. You give a hint of what is the basic expected, the anticipated answer of all this study which is being carried out. You indicate the answer, Everything is there within the introduction, which is why it's written here that it's the big picture. Then you basically outline the scope. This is basically the scope on which we had that detailed talk. Now you know, in case of that stress, that range of land, that range of the nature of the employee, that range of time, everything is supposed to be mentioned here as well. And you give a kind of preview to the report, meaning what's coming here, you give its preview, and then the main thing, and then of course what you expect, a review that you basically do, but it's a preview of what's coming ahead. This is basic purpose of an introduction. And then you mention the limitations. Now you know how you are basically supposed to write the limitation as well. If you still have any kind of confusion, just start dragging back the lecture. Over there you had a detailed talk over it when I gave you the example of the executive summary, and within the executive summary number 2 we had some bullet points of all the limitation points. You can look into it to understand how basically limitations are mentioned within a report and its executive summary. So you even mention it within the introductory part as well. Now look at the sample itself, clearly stating how you basically write it. Today many organizations and employees are experiencing the effects of stress on work performance. Why stress? Because I guess sometimes while listening or viewing the lecture, you may feel the stress as well. We have to follow it, we have to follow it. But as I'm mentioning it to you, you know the cues, you know how to handle it, how to watch it. You know the tricks, you know the technique, and you know the strategy as well. So that's why it became a topic as well for the example and for sharing it. The effect of stress can neither be positive or negative. What is perceived as positive by one person may be negative as well for the other person. So there could be a little bit of difference as well in the opinion, since everyone perceives this situation differently. So according to Baden, well, this is the way you give a citation. So I'll be mentioning and I'll be talking with respect to the manner in which you basically cite as well what is expected to be cited. I'll mention it, but if you look into the example, negative stress is becoming a major illness in the work environment, and it can debilitate employees, can be costly to employers. Managers need to identify those suffering and implement programs which could deal with them. So that's how you are stating everything, setting up the background, stating everything in detail so that the readers may know what's coming ahead. So we'll talk about the objectives, then what was the basic focus. So these programs may reduce stress. So this is the likely outcome or the anticipated answer, the way you give a hint of it. But as I told you, what is basically supposed to be referred to or what is supposed to be cited, well, the exact words can be cited, but the exact words, if they are being cited, will come under quotation marks. And in a similar way, you write the author's last name, the year of publication within parentheses. When you will do it in this way, then it won't be considered to be plagiarized. But the technique is, once again, exact quotes within quotation marks, double comma here, double comma here, double comma here within this quote, then author's name, then bracket, year. That's how you do it, no plagiarism. This is the basic technique of avoiding plagiarism as well and becoming writing in a professional way. Look at another heading as well. I'm saying it a heading, it's basically a complete sample for you. And over here you have a detailed background, all the statistical figures here, names, abbreviations, because it's after all the introduction. So you're giving abbreviation, you're using things, you're providing details within parentheses, you're explaining the process, you're using numerical figures as well. But that's the purpose of sharing it, that you are providing detail within the introduction, setting the background, and that's how you do it. Another good sample here for you. Just look at the way every section has been written. The purpose of this report is to investigate the reasons behind the rise in computer gaming addiction. The report will also recommend preventive measures, like this will be done. This is the reason. You have stated the problem. Reasons behind the rise in computer gaming addiction. This is becoming a problem on the basis of which you are able to write the purpose. For stating it, you'll go towards stating the background. Recent study on game technology, and then the reference, shows that nearly 75% of teenagers, statistics, play computer games. Rise in computer gaming is a growing concern, and the Ministry of Media Development, that's how you use abbreviations, first giving the introduction, first stating it completely, then writing it within parentheses, and afterwards you can just use the abbreviation as well. The report was commissioned and so on. Look at the way the numerical figures, facts are there. Method of investigation, now you are here. Questionnaires were issued to 100 teenagers, and you are talking about the detail, and then come towards the scope, that again the boundary. Besides respondents' profile, this report looked into 4 possible reasons for the rise in gaming addiction among teenagers, which are boredom, stress, societal influence, and addictive games. So within that boundary that you have stressed for yourself, in addition to gaming addiction, we're going to consider 4 other factors, which are boredom, stress, societal influence, and addictive game features. Meaning now within the scope you have clearly defined that they also fall within that boundary and will be studied as well. Had they not mentioned it and they would have made part of the report, would have caused a lot of problems. So within that scope you have to write things very clearly. Another good example to understand things, this report looks into the facts influencing students' behavior in lecture theatres and suggests ways to. So, purpose, factors influencing student behavior in lecture theatres, the basic problem, recommendation. That's how you do it. This report studies purpose, causes of unhealthy eating among teenagers, the basic problem, and then recommendation. So, in such a short way you can write it as well, and it can go a little long as well depending on your needs, but that is how you basically do it, and you are not going to face any trouble. With that, we come to the conclusion with some cues. Now you know how to follow the lecture. You have done it well. I congratulate you, because now you can do a little bit practice as well of going through some study, think and imagine of some area that you would like to take as a topic. Think, or first analyze the problem, identify it first, then study it in detail, and then try to write something over it. Now you know how to do it. It should have clearly defined purpose, then giving a background, then talking about the kind of methodology that you will be using, anticipated answer, what's the basic scope and what are the limitations, and you'll become a master of writing a good and thorough introduction, in keeping in mind those tips of avoiding plagiarism, using the quotation marks if you're using the exact quotes, alongside a reference within parentheses of author's last name. Let's say if you're citing me, Anmol Ahmed is my name, so you'll say Ahmed, 2018, bracket close. That's how you give a reference, and I believe you're going to do it as well. With that, I would like to put an end to our today's discussion. We're going to talk about the rest of the components in our following lecture, meaning the next lecture. Till that time, take good care of yourself. I wish you once again best of luck for the upcoming lectures as well. Till that time, take good care. Assalamu alaikum and Allah Hafiz.